When Margaret Collins took down her pediatrician's license from the clinic wall, she had no idea it would mark such a significant turning point in her life. Throughout her 62 years, she had saved countless children's lives. And now, the life she most wanted to save was that of her only granddaughter. "Thanks for picking me up again, Grandma." Sophie's voice from the back seat was quieter than usual. Maggie gazed at her 8-year-old granddaughter through the rearview mirror. She was wearing a long-sleeved sweater again, even though Boston's autumn wasn't that cold yet. "Of course, sweetheart. It's my pleasure." A gentle silence filled the car. This was their precious time together, twice a week. On these drives home from school, Sophie had slowly begun to open up. "Mom's been so angry lately." Though it sounded like casual conversation, alarm bells rang in Maggie's heart. With over 30 years of experience as a pediatrician, she sensed the darkness lurking behind those words. "I get so scared when I make mistakes." Sophie's voice trembled. Maggie recalled numerous cases she'd seen at the hospital, families that appeared perfect on the surface but harbored deep wounds. And day by day, her fears grew that a similar situation was unfolding within her own family. Since losing her husband John to a heart attack 2 years ago, Maggie's reason for living had been her time with her granddaughter. And now, that precious granddaughter was suffering. #BestMomLife, #PerfectFamily, #LovingMother. Victoria elegantly manipulated her smartphone, adding hashtags to her latest post. The screen showed her baking cookies with Sophie. Her 500,000 followers were rapidly liking this lovely mother-daughter holiday moment. "That's today's post done." The moment Victoria put down her phone, her expression changed completely. "Sophie, you spilled flour on the floor again. You're absolutely useless." Victoria's sharp voice rang out as she spotted the flour on the kitchen floor. Sophie hunched her shoulders and silently began wiping it up. As a parenting influencer earning over $200,000 a year, Vicky excelled at projecting the image of a perfect mother. However, off-camera, she showed an entirely different face. "You've ruined the shoot, thanks to you." Lately, Vicky's hysterical scolding had been escalating. Her shopping sprees for luxury brands had increased, as had her nights out. The gap between her superficial perfection and reality grew wider by the day. Christopher's phone rang while he was reviewing blueprints for a major project at his architectural firm. It was his mother. "Chris, we need to talk." There was an unusual tension in Maggie's voice. "I found bruises on Sophie's arm today. She said she fell, but..." Christopher let out a deep sigh. His gentle nature had made him slow to notice the changes at home, absorbed in his work. But lately, he too had felt something was wrong. "I understand, Mom. I'm looking into it." After hanging up, Christopher opened his desk drawer. Inside was a private investigator's report. Evidence of his wife's suspicious behavior, online gambling records, and most importantly, proof of her daily verbal abuse towards Sophie. The decisive man was already considering his next move. In a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Boston, Maggie was stitching a traditional family quilt in her backyard. This Christmas would hold special meaning. As the cold autumn wind blew through, Maggie continued her needlework, deep in thought. As a doctor, as a grandmother, and above all as a human being, she had something she needed to protect. In her heart, anxiety about disrupting the superficial peace battled with her mission to save her granddaughter. 1 month until Christmas. The time that would drastically change this family's destiny was quietly but surely approaching. Thanksgiving morning brought a cold fog to Boston's suburbs. Maggie had been preparing the turkey since early morning. In the photo frame on the dining table, her husband John, who had passed away 2 years ago, smiled gently. This year especially, she felt his absence deeply. "Let me help." Sophie, wearing an apron, began peeling potatoes beside her grandmother. Her careful movements showed an unusual tension for an 8-year-old. "You're doing great, Sophie." When Maggie praised her, her granddaughter's face brightened momentarily. But the expression quickly faded as they heard the front door open. "Hello, everyone." Vicky's voice rang out. Perfect makeup and a glamorous dress, she looked as if she'd come for an Instagram photo shoot. Christopher appeared behind her, carrying large paper bags. "Sorry we're late. I had a live stream to do." Despite her apologetic words, there was arrogance in Vicky's voice. She immediately took out her smartphone and began photographing the kitchen scene. "Sophie, stand over there. Oh, that apron looks cheap. Let's change it." Vicky pulled out a luxury brand apron with the logo still visible. The price tag was still attached. "But Grandma gave me this one." Sophie's voice trembled. "Just do as I say. My followers are watching." That's when it happened. Sophie's hand slipped, and a glass fell to the floor. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the room. A moment of silence. "What have you done?" Vicky's scream filled the room. "Who did you inherit this clumsiness from?" "Certainly not from me." Those words froze Christopher and Maggie in place. The warm Thanksgiving atmosphere instantly turned ice cold. "I'm sorry." Sophie repeatedly apologized, her shoulders shaking. The sight pained Maggie's heart. "I'll clean it up." Christopher quietly stood up to get cleaning supplies. There was a sense of determination in his back. That night, Maggie couldn't sleep. In her backyard studio, she continued working on the Christmas quilt while reflecting on the day's events. The Collins family tradition passed down through generations. A quilt made with love in every stitch. This year's design held special meaning. Scattered among the blue and white fabric were small butterfly patterns. These wings of freedom patterns contained prayers for Sophie. "I never thought it would come to this," Maggie murmured while continuing her needlework. The evidence of abuse she had seen as a doctor. And now, the same thing was happening within her own family. As Christmas approached, Vicky's behavior became increasingly erratic. Her social media posting frequency increased. #PerfectMomLife, #BlessedFamily hashtags accompanied endless uploads of happy mother-daughter moments. But reality was far removed from these posts. "I'll be late tonight. I have a business meeting," Vicky would say as she left, but Christopher already knew the truth. The meetings at luxury hotels. The inappropriate relationship with a real estate client. The detective's report detailed everything. Even more serious were the financial issues. Massive online gambling debts. Maxed out credit cards. Buying and returning luxury goods for profit. The problems were more severe than expected. "Mom, I want an iPad for Christmas," Sophie said quietly one day. "Of course, sweetie. Mommy will get you the perfect present." There was an unnatural brightness in Vicky's voice. That night, she went out again. New evidence was added to the envelope in Christopher's desk drawer. The clock ticked quietly toward Christmas. In Maggie's studio, the quilt was nearly complete. The emotions stitched into every inch would soon reveal all truths. Everyone knew this piece couldn't last much longer. Christmas morning brought gentle snowfall. Maggie had lit the fireplace early and prepared the living room. Under the large Christmas tree lay presents wrapped in colorful paper. In the center, a box adorned with blue and white ribbons. Inside waited the handmade quilt, passed down through generations. "Merry Christmas, Mom." Christopher entered, holding Sophie's hand. Vicky appeared behind them, dressed in perfect Christmas coordination, already holding her smartphone. "What a lovely morning. #Christmas morning #family time." The camera shutter sound clicked. Vicky's post already had hundreds of likes. But beneath the festive surface, everyone felt an unusual tension. "Time for presents," Maggie announced. The family took turns opening gifts. Vicky showed satisfaction with the luxury watch from Christopher. However, there was something unnatural about her smile. "Sophie, your turn." Vicky's voice rang higher than usual. Sophie nervously reached for the blue and white ribbon. The wrapping paper torn, the box opened. Inside was the handmade quilt Maggie had spent months creating. The butterfly patterns sparkled beautifully in the morning light. "This." Tears welled up in Sophie's eyes. "This isn't." "Mom, you promised an iPad." The room's atmosphere froze. "How dare you show such attitude?" Vicky's scream echoed. She suddenly stood up and headed to the kitchen. Opening the refrigerator, she grabbed eggs. Her movements showed clear signs of instability. You let her expect an expensive present, and try to fool her with this piece of rag. "Vicky, calm down." Just as Maggie tried to stop her, the egg flew. It broke on Sophie's chest, yolk dripping down her clothes. The room fell into complete silence. "Ah!" A low laugh. All eyes turned to Christopher. He slowly rose from the sofa. "The next present is for you, Vicky." His voice carried a coldness they'd never heard before. "Chris." Vicky's voice trembled. Christopher took an envelope from his suit's inner pocket. "Why don't you open it? It might not be what you wanted." With a sardonic smile, Christopher placed the envelope on the table. "What is this?" Vicky's shaking hand reached for the envelope. From the opened envelope slid a bundle of papers. At the top danced the words, "Petition for divorce." "No. There's more." Christopher took out his smartphone and began operating it. "Photos from the hotel with your lover. Online gambling records. And..." The screen turned toward Vicky. "This is footage from the camera hidden in the quilt. There, Recorded were decisive moments of daily abuse towards Sophie. Lies, these are all lies. Vicky's scream echoed. But her voice already carried the tone of defeat. I am a perfect mother. My followers. Just then, the sound of approaching police sirens could be heard. I've already contacted the police and child protective services. Christopher's voice remained calm. Sophie, come here. Maggie embraced her granddaughter. Through the egg-stained clothes, she could feel the small body trembling. It's all right now. Grandma will protect you. At that moment, Vicky made one last attempt at resistance. Wait, Chris. We can still work this out. She tried to rush toward her husband but tripped over her own feet. The coffee cup on the table fell, brown stains spreading across the white carpet. Like her facade of a perfect life crumbling away. I tried too hard to be the perfect mother. Vicky's voice suddenly became weak. In the social media world, I was the ideal mother. But in reality, tears ruined her perfect makeup. It was like watching a mask fall away. A knock sounded at the front door. Uniformed police officers and a child protective services social worker appeared. I'll tell everything. Vicky's voice was filled with resignation. Just one thing. Sophie, I'm sorry. Whether those words were genuine remorse or another performance, no one could tell. Outside, snow continued to fall quietly. No one yet knew that this morning would mark a new beginning. The fire crackled softly in the fireplace. Under the Christmas tree lay the blue and white quilt, like a silent witness. The butterfly patterns seemed ready to take flight at any moment. The camera hidden within the fabric had served its purpose. From now on, it would become new eyes watching over this family. The sun was rising, marking the beginning of a new day. From this day forward, the Collins family's story would turn to an entirely new page. While it was a sad ending, it was also the beginning of new hope. The sound of police sirens faded into the distance. The red taillights of the police car carrying Vicky disappeared into the morning mist. A heavy silence remained in the Collins family living room. We have more than enough evidence. Sarah, the Child Protective Services social worker, quietly began speaking. Christopher, your preparation was perfect. In cases like these, we often see victims unable to prove abuse due to lack of evidence, but a thick file lay spread on the table. Evidence: photos of infidelity, luxury hotel receipts, online gambling account history, and most decisively, the footage of daily abuse captured by the camera hidden in the quilt. You were so brave. Sarah gently spoke to Sophie, who was curled up in the corner of the sofa. The egg-stained clothes had been changed for a fleece pajama set made by Maggie. You know, Sophie began in a small voice. I always thought I was a bad child. That I was worthless because I couldn't do things the way Mom wanted. Those words pained the hearts of every adult in the room. Sophie. Christopher knelt before his daughter. Daddy's sorry too. I should have noticed sooner. But I promise, no one will ever hurt you again. Promise. I promise. Watching father and daughter embrace, Maggie quietly wiped away her tears. The aftermath unfolded surprisingly quickly. Vicky was charged with child abuse. Though she avoided prison time due to it being her first offense and considering the results of her psychiatric evaluation, she was placed on probation. Her social media accounts were suspended, and the mask of the perfect mother she had worn before 500,000 followers was permanently stripped away. Full custody was granted to Christopher, and a restraining order was issued against Vicky. The full extent of her debts came to light. $120,000 in online gambling losses. Fraudulent activities involving buying and returning luxury goods. It had all started from trying to maintain appearances on social media. It's hard for our generation to understand. Maggie murmured in the car after finishing a meeting with specialists. Being trapped in the perfect life on social media, losing sight of real happiness. Christopher quietly nodded in the passenger seat. But this is our new beginning. The start of our real family story. 6 months later, in early summer. A small vegetable garden had been planted in the Collins family backyard. "Grandma, the tomatoes are turning red." Sophie's voice rang out cheerfully in the sunshine. Coming to Maggie's house every weekend to grow vegetables together had become their new tradition. After 6 months of professional care, Sophie was slowly but surely regaining her smile. Her school grades began to improve, and her relationships with friends gradually got better. "Dad, look." Christopher smiled gently at Sophie as she held up the harvested tomatoes in both hands. He too had established a new rhythm as a single father. He chose smaller projects at his architectural firm, prioritizing time with his daughter. The quilt given that Christmas morning hung on the living room wall. The camera had been removed, and it now quietly watched over the family as a pure symbol of love. The butterfly patterns shone brightly, as if symbolizing their new life. "Grandma." At dusk, Sophie suddenly asked Maggie. "When I grow up, can I learn to make quilts too?" The question brought tears to Maggie's eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. It's a tradition for Collins family women." Grandmother and granddaughter embraced quietly in the sunset-lit backyard. Their wounded hearts were being stitched together with threads of love. Like making a quilt, patiently, gently, and surely. Sometimes, things need to break before they can take on a new form. Perhaps true happiness lies not in pursuing perfection, but in accepting imperfect reality and spinning hope from it. The Collins family's new story was just beginning. Not a virtual image on social media, but a real story filled with warmth, sometimes awkward but genuine love. Like the stitches sewn into the quilt, it would continue to be woven slowly but surely, one day at a time.